All right.
No, 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 no.
All right. All right.
All right.
All right. All right. All right. All right.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trey's Models. On this video we're going to be doing the Tamiya sdkfz184 Elefant. Now this kit is kit number 35325. And to avoid the pain that I went through with the Panther and the homemade Zimmerit, I got a sheet of Zimmerit from Tamiya, and this is sheet number 12644, and it's the self-adhesive type. You still have to cut it out, and you still have to cut out for the tools. This one doesn't have any tool holders on the side, but it does have some big bolts sticking out. So you do have to cut for that. But other than that, it goes on a whole lot better than the homemade Zimmerit did for me anyway. And it wasn't that bad to work with at all. All right, we got the Zimmerit on, and up next was a barrel modification. I got a metal barrel from Aber. And it's two-part. The muzzle brake comes separate, and I use some Starbond flexible CA to get that in place, and also to actually mount the barrel down into the mantlet. Did have to drill the mantlet out a little bit, and instead of drilling it out and making it a big distorting the hole, I actually wound up putting the barrel in a drill bit and sanding down the very end of the barrel so it would fit down in there. Next up was the tow cables. I used an old pull cable from a remote control airplane. It's a 440 sized cable. Drilled out the end of the eye, inserted the cable in there and attached it with some flexible CA. Then drilled out the spare track links where the track links go together and mounted those up on the hull. The rest of the build-up with the road wheels is pretty common, and this kit's been out for a long time, so I wasn't going to rehash that. The bogies go together. They have a neoprene rubber insert that holds them onto the axles that makes it real easy to pop them on and off. But basically up next, I'm going to spray it black, and I used basic Testors enamel, semi-gloss through the airbrush. And after we got the black on, I let that cure out a little bit. Then I took some Mr. Color and reduced that down with it's a generic base coat reducer for automotive paint. And I use that to cut all my enamels. It works really well. You can find it at a local automotive supply store if you want to use it. You do have to use the proper protective equipment and make sure your shop is well ventilated if you're going to use these chemicals. But basic spraying through a stencil, and did some modeling to break up the monochromatic effect up underneath, and got it ready for some top color. On to the basic paint up. I did use Mr. Color mixed lightened with some Testors white. I've experimented before and found these colors to be compatible. They're both enamels, and they both react well to the reducer that I use, that generic automotive base coat reducer. And going through the airbrush, trying to keep the pattern as tight as I could. I did sketch the pattern onto the body with very softly with a pencil, just to give me a basic guide. Then just going slow and trying to keep the pattern as tight as I could using the nozzle that I'm using. I probably should have thinned the paint down just a little bit more. I think it was a little too thick. I did have to come back and touch up some areas with the basic Panzer Tan, or the sand, whatever you want to call it, where I blown out some of the green and got it too fat. Also, the color probably could have been a little lighter later on in the build. After the weathering was on, it darkened everything up. So that's something I have to account for in the future if I keep building these armor pieces is to plan ahead with the colors and how much they're going to change after the weathering goes on. I didn't take that into account on this one, and it did darken it up a tad. It's not a deal breaker. I'm okay with it. For my purposes, it'll be fine. But got the paint down, I let that cure out, and then sealed it with a coat of Tester's Dull Coat. Put one fairly thin coat on because I was going to be doing multiple layers of weathering and clearing in between. I didn't want it to build up too awful much. And that set everything up for the next stage, which was the weathering, which is coming up. For a basic weathering base on the bottom, I didn't want to get too muddy. I wanted some basic dirt, but I didn't want it to be too clumpy. So I took some Mod Podge, mixed it with some regular play sand, and then took some acrylic hobby paint and mixed that up into a slurry, and then just brushed it up into place up underneath and behind the bogies, just to give it a little bit more texture and without getting too carried away. Getting the road wheels in place and getting ready to move on to build the tracks, I wanted to put some wear where the steel road wheels would rub up against the steel of the track and actually polish them, for lack of a better word. So I used a chrome liquid marker and just went around the edges of the wheels just to get that effect. Up next were the tracks. There's a basic length and link that are pretty common with these. I won't go into great detail about it. Just had to clean up a little bit where we cut it off the sprue. There really wasn't any ejector pin marks that were going to like jump out and be really bad, so that part of it was pretty painless. With the basic tracks assembled, I went ahead and painted them with a combination of a mixed Tester's iron and steel mixed together, and then lighten that up with just a little bit of silver, not very much. Based the whole tracks down with those. Then I came back after that enamel had cured off and got out the washes, and I used several different Vallejo rust washes in layers and randomly, in no particular pattern or order, just came back and just weathered the tracks down with the several different washes. After the washes had cured out, I sprayed the tracks with a light coat of dull coat just to seal everything down, and then it was just a matter of popping the tracks on after I had to pull the drive and the return sprockets off, get those situated on the tracks, pop everything back together, get the tracks up into place, and then glued those all back down. Before I did all that, I did take that chrome pin again, and I came back and hit the areas where the road wheels had made contact with the tracks, and also the teeth on the return and drive sprocket. Got those weathered up before. One thing I will tell you, if you're going to use the Tester's Dull Coat over that chrome pin, if you hit it too hard, it will blow that color right off of there. So, light coats. I made the mistake of getting a little too close and heavy-handed with it and lost a couple spots. It wasn't any big deal, I just had to come back and touch it up again. but that will happen with that chrome for some reason. The tester's dull coat attacks it. Then after that, made sure everything was glued down and in place. I actually weighted the model down so that the tracks would glue down level. Okay. Onto the washes. I did two basic washes, one with the AK landing gear wash, and then after that had settled in, I came back and blended it out with some mineral spirits. While that was going on, I'd laid out some artist oils on a piece of cardboard, let the oil soak out of them a little bit, then mixed up different combinations of the brown and the black, and in various tones. I'd wet the area first with a little mineral spirits, and then I would apply the actual wash in there and let it flow in, wet on wet application, and then I came back and cleaned it up with more mineral spirits in the areas that I got a little heavy with it, and let it flow in the areas that where it needed to get in all the little nooks and crannies, make those details pop a little bit. Onto the pastel weathering. Before I did that, I did spray it with another coat of dull coat to seal down all the oils after they had cured out for about 2 days. When that had finished up, I got a piece of 80 grit and got out about 3 or 4 different colors of pastel chalk, ground those into a powder, and strategically placed those in a way that it would look like the tank had been getting dirty as it was driving. So heavier to the back, a little lighter up to the front. Also on the barrel, a little black for some soot. I did have to apply this twice because when I hit it with the dull coat, it toned it way down. You couldn't even tell it was really there. So 2 applications of the pastels, another light coat of dull coat to seal all of that down. This Tamiya kit was a new tool in 2012, and again it was kit number 35325. Really what you would come to expect for a Tamiya kit. Everything went together really well. There was absolutely no filler needed anywhere. The weld details were, for my liking, were fine. I did come back in and put some extra cutting weld marks on the side on the upper casemate. Other than that, it's a basic out-of-the-box build with the exception of the Zimmerit and the metal barrel. And quick rundown on the sdkfz184 Elefant. It started out life actually as the Porsche Tiger, the Tiger P. It was believed to be going to win the competition against the Henschel Tiger, which it did not. But they had already built about 100 of these chassis. So rather than just let them go to waste, I guess the thought was, let's do something with them. They moved some stuff around, relocated the engine, and put a casemate on it, ditched the turret, and came up with the Ferdinand, which it was originally called. And it went into service, I believe Kursk was the first Operation Citadel, was where it cut its teeth in combat. And they found out that there were some deficiencies they needed to take care of. One of them was the addition of a forward machine gun, and one of the other ones, there were several, but one of the other ones was the commander's cupola, give better visibility, make it less vulnerable to anti-tank groups and infantry, basically. So it also got a name change from the Ferdinand to the Elefant. Cone of Arc actually does a real good video, a deeper dive into the whole history of this piece of equipment. Be worth going over there and checking it out. It's really informative. He does a good job. But in conclusion, I really enjoyed this build. It was a lot of fun. Well, thanks for watching. Please hit that like button and subscribe. And I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one.